Pop in, say hi. If you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and this is my Sunday show. I know, 6 days a week. I really love what I'm doing, and it wasn't always so super easy to come in and show myself. In fact, lots of times I'd have to give myself a little pep talks to hit that live button. Everything is a process. Everything takes a time, and it's not a matter of thinking that, we're not bright enough or we just don't have the talent for doing what we do. It's the fact that we want everything yesterday and we try something once and we fail. Hello, Owen. We try something once and we fail and we say, that's it. I give up. I'm never doing that again. I've been at this here on YouTube now for, oh my goodness, it's been 11 years. It could possibly be 12 years now. I'll have to go back and take a look. But in being consistent, that's something that I pride myself on, only for the fact that it was difficult and I wasn't always consistent. I I feel like I've always applied myself in what I did. But when you bumble along and you don't know what you're doing, right? It is kind of nervous, right? It is kind of agitating. And, being a highly sensitive, being empathic, lots of times, we kind of down talk ourselves, right? We weren't necessarily our best friends, our best cheerleaders in what we do. And because we don't want to look foolish, we don't want to look unintelligent, we don't want to look like we don't belong. And if I learned anything about this process of being on social media, right? Nobody belongs in the beginning, right? And not everybody makes it. And that's the truth. When I came in, oh my goodness, when I go online now and I check out who's still giving her, when I started, like we all started as like a little entry group, right? And I started in urban exploration. I explored abandoned farms and abandoned houses. If you ever want to go into my main channel and take a look at what I do and exploring the outside, you might find it interesting. You might find it fun. Actually, Tammy here has been going full force into my urban explorers and into my podcast, like going back to some of those very, very first podcasts where I had no idea what I was doing from one moment to another. Everything was even a surprise for myself. It's still a surprise, but in that unsureness, it's the consistency that makes me feel and understand that it's okay, right? That's the way I want to come in because that's genuine, right? When somebody's reading from a script or presenting their videos like they are the be alls to end alls, the experts in what they do, people know, right? And they'll just move along, do something else, check somebody else out, and we lose that opportunity to make a new friend, to make a new connection, to build on ourselves, right? Because we are the examples for each other. And if you just come in and you just see me flubber along and stuff, right? And you go, oh my goodness, she's not very professional. She's not going by the script, right? She's kind of casual in what she's doing. But at the same time, if you are somebody that can feel out people, you would feel out that genuineness. You would feel that heart. And in the moment, whether it's a hard heart or a soft heart, I always try to keep it soft. I really do. We live in a world now where everybody is so walled up, right? So zipped shut, so worried about what somebody else is going to think or what somebody else is going to do in retaliation for what you're doing. Because we know that not everybody means us well, right? And lots of times, the people that don't mean us well are the closest people to us. And that's a truth. But right, that all took time. That all took not knowing anything, but just being consistent and showing up, to do my lives. And in showing up, after what, 11, 12 years now of being on YouTube, working on social media, because in the beginning I was just all over the place. Facebook, Instagram, right? I was copywriting. Oh, talk about writing, you guys. I started my novel. I've got 2 pages done. And somebody would go, 2 pages? Are you kidding me? But because it is, what do you call it? Fictional biography, it's a kind of mix of the truth and a story in a way that somebody might be able to recognize themselves in it. And also in understanding my story is so different than everybody else's story. And everybody else's story is different than mine. So no matter what any of us do, if we're consistent in showing up, if we are, right, always trying to better ourselves in the things that catch our curiosity, that catch our attention, in our hobbies, in working towards our goals, and in actually taking a look at how we feel from one moment to the next. And you might recognize, right, that, oh my goodness, it was okay. It was okay for me to come on to YouTube. And, even Tammy would say she's recently been into my oldest video. And I know you guys have been into them too, but it's been like 10 or 11 years, right? She's been in them recently. So she's getting a really good perspective of who I was in comparison to who I am now. And at that point, I had no clue. I had no idea where any of this was going to lead me. And in truth, I still have no idea as to where it's going to lead me. But I do know that everything is going to be okay. That I am welcomed by permission of myself and a little help from my friends along the way, right? And yeah, and that's all we have to do. That's all any one of us has to do, is just start off by showing up, right? And being consistent in making that movement. And it doesn't mean going 100 miles an hour if you're not capable of going 100 miles an hour. And you might be capable of going 100 miles an hour, right? But you just don't want to. That's how it started with me. I just didn't want to. But, right, I understood that showing up was most important. And if I showed up, if I put one foot in front of another, right, eventually that next insight, that next understanding, that next big break in my life would show up, and not to be afraid of it, that everything was going to be okay as long as I made that movement, right? As long as I just kept going, that, right, everything would be okay. And that's an honest truth. I think I was my worst enemy in not being consistent, right? In what I did, in what I loved. And what I loved was being a YouTube creator, right? And in that, I had to be creative, right? I had to be creative. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been sitting here right now because I wouldn't have had any abandons to explore, right? I wouldn't have had any bushcraft videos for anybody. I might have had my walk with me's, right? But my live shows, that was that was my baby, and that was not even knowing what I was doing, but just moving anyway, until I had a kind of a feel of what I was doing, and then I had an understanding of what I was doing, then I had the consistency of what I was doing, and then possibly that comfortableness and that enthusiasm for what I was doing. And all of that time, just being myself, not reading a script. And you guys know how bad I am, even with a point list and my notes. And I take a lot of notes. I didn't take any notes at all today. Um, uh, but I take a lot of notes, and just a day's worth of notes would have all kinds of insights to tap into and to present here. But very rarely do I do that, only because I know that my gift lies in that casualness, right? In just showing up and being myself, and just building on those relationships that trickle into my life. And I'm so grateful for you guys. Let's see who's popped in tonight. Owen's here. Thank you so much, Owen, for showing up first and saying hi to everybody. Kathy's here. Hi, Kathy. Oh my goodness. And Tammy's here. Awesome. You guys, thank you so much for popping in. It has been, oh, Earl's here too. Oh my goodness. Hello, Earl. Just swinging in to say hello. See you all later. Hello, everybody. That's really nice of you. Really nice of you, Earl. We'll see you. We'll see you later. Pop in after whatever you're doing, but I appreciate that you popped in just to say hi. That's pretty amazing. I don't know how anybody else's week has been going, but mine has been like a mixed bowl of a little bit of everything. The weather's kind of breaking here in Winnipeg. It was kind of drizzling and raining, and it hit like plus 3 today Celsius. So we're in that start, you guys, of warming up and moving into things brightening up a little bit, right? We know what spring does for us. Sometimes we get a little bit of teaser. I'm not getting super excited. Well, maybe I am a little bit, because I colored my hair today for spring, to bring a little bit of brightness into my life, to get myself all pumped up that, right, spring is here, and to feel good about myself, because it has been a long winter. If you're in Canada, you guys know that we had a real winter this year. Past few years it's been pretty mild, you guys. Like there were times in the middle of winter where we didn't even have snow on the ground, which is an absolute never here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. If you don't know, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and it was just a sign of global warming. That's all we talked about was global warming for the past 3 years. That certainly wasn't what we were talking about this winter, because we got hit pretty good. But I also understand in March, we always get the teasers, right? Where we get that few days of good melt going on. Possibly we can get rid of all the snow and then we get slammed again for another couple of weeks before we start really getting into winter. But it's enough for the husbands to get outside and start clearing the eaves trough and cleaning the poop out of the dog poop out of the backyard and get right, because that's that feeling of, oh my goodness, we can get outside and we could do things outside. And I actually went out yesterday for a little bit, and that moisture in the air, oh my goodness, not pleasant, right? Even though it was, well, it wasn't in the pluses yesterday, but it was melting a little bit, right? It was kind of really wet and mild outside, and that cold and that wet in the wind, it was not pleasant. Today, I didn't go out today, but I enjoyed looking out the window and the at the rain, and I can always tell that spring is kind of in the air because the birds, oh my goodness, they were playing. And I yesterday I saw this flock of crows. There must have been at least, I would say, 200 or 300 crows in this flock. And they were just flying and dancing and whirling around in the wind. And they were just really enjoying the day. Okay. Tammy, I heard about that, Tammy. Tell us about that. 6 people died. Oh my goodness. The last time I heard, I was going to ask you about that, Tammy. Did you see the tornado? Oh my goodness. And 12 injured. Yeah, I heard about the tornadoes in Michigan. I meant to ask you about that. Did you see the tornadoes? Did you stay inside the house? Wow. Okay, Cindy, did you know that a flock of crows is called a murder? Why is it called a murder? Why is it called a murder? Because they're black? No, it was in the northern part of Michigan, about 2 hours away. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we don't get tornadoes here very often. We did, I think, get a little one. But they're more like what do you call those, like whirly burls, that you have in like oh, tumbleweeds. They're like tumbleweeds that just kind of whirl around on the ground, eh? I saw some video of the tornado. It was alarming to watch and to listen to, right? The digital age. We don't miss anything. Tumbleweeds, dust storms and tumbleweeds. Yes, thank you, Tammy. In Vancouver this week, earlier in the week, we had a meteor hit the atmosphere. Did you guys see that one in the news? It lit up the entire sky, and then there was a great big monster boom, and they didn't know what it was. It freaked everybody out. It wasn't like falling star or anything. It was like actually a meteor hitting the atmosphere. And it was crazy the way that it lit up the whole sky, because this meteor, they said, was no bigger than this. When it hit our atmosphere, it was no bigger than this. Like, incredible that it could, right, be seen and heard from other cities, and that just kind of makes you wonder, right? It was only this big, right? So you know that it's not even going to be any pieces to find or anything, right? I would love to find a meteor. I thought I found one when I was a kid. It was in my neighbor's back garden, and we dug it out, and it looked like a piece of Swiss cheese. This big boulder, and we called it the meteor, right? And I just remembered all through my teen years. Oh, we moved a couple of times after that, but I remember in my teen years just thinking about that meteor, because by then I had already kind of understood that meteors are worth money if you find meteors. And I thought, oh my goodness, I wonder if I could like go to that house. My friend Lorraine lived in that house in Vancouver. She was one of my friends. It was funny because I only had a few friends in grade school, but my friends in grade school didn't even make it through to graduation. But not only that, they had already had kids by the time they were 16 years old. They were wonderful friends, right? And again, right, it's amazing because we are who we surround ourselves with. But I never went down that route. In fact, I never had kids at all. But I couldn't imagine that at 16 years old, that the few friends that I did have, they had already had babies by the time they were 16 years old, right? And we, like I said, we are who we surround ourselves with, but I surrounded myself with their hearts and not with their personas. And that's a good way to look at it. When I say it takes all kinds to make the world, that's a prime example, right? Because everybody that's come into my life has been so different from each other. I got along with all of them, and unfortunately, they didn't always get along with each other. They didn't always have that same attitude as what I did, of being open-minded to being around different people. They just thought, well, this is this group, and this is this group, and this group, well, like this, right? And for me, I always judged people how they treated me, right? How interesting they were, or how much fun we had in our conversations. Sometimes it was in our commonalities, in our interests, right? Our hobbies. And sometimes, lots of times, I got to learn to appreciate people that were outside of my group. My sisters were beautiful, right? Their friends were beautiful. They weren't always so beautiful on the outside or in the inside as they were on the outside. But sometimes, when we don't have our friends ourselves, I tagged along with my sisters and hung out with their friends. And then that's how I got to find my own friends, to be able to be around those groups. And I found some really beautiful people, inside and outside, right? Um, Being a teenager, right? I like the boys. And so, of course, I would be looking at the good looking guys and stuff. But I was not the type of girl that the guys would hang out with, because I was kind of a bit of an outsider on the outside, meaning I wasn't super attractive, right? I was the chubby, quiet, shy girl who was always hyper vigilant, always thinking that somebody was out to get me, and I was about to get in trouble at any moment. And right, those lots of times people would just bypass me as a potential for a friend, right? But being able to hang out with my sisters and stuff and their groups, because they were pretty, the guys were always chasing my sisters, right? That I and also to understand lots of times the guys would make friends with me in order to get close to my sisters. And lots of times I found my own friends that way too, not being judgmental as to how people come into our lives, but recognize once the people are in our lives, in our vicinities, that we can actually recognize how amazing they truly were. Toot my own horn, but we should all toot our own horn. I mean, look at us, our group, right? We all found each other, right? And we are the best of pals. And we might not have ever met each other if not for this digital age. It's not like I would have been walking down the street in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I would have bumped into Kathy or Owen or Andrew or Tammy, right? Because we all live so far away from each other, right? But somehow, some way, we did meet each other. And right, I don't think that my brand, somehow I would have adapted and I would have conquered, but it wouldn't have been as enjoyable, right? Not having you guys come into my life. I have no idea. Like, you guys have stuck with me for all these years, over a decade now, you guys, that you've been hanging out with me, right? And you guys have stuck out with me was for so long, through all those pivots, through all those adapt and conquers, through all those changes that I've gone through. And lots of times people would maybe hang out with me just to watch the disaster story of Cindy, right? That must have been pretty well. I don't know how you guys thought about it, but right when I was going through that process, and I could even include Tammy in that because she was watching a lot of those live shows that I was doing when I was going through that process of almost ending up homeless. I was so scared. Even remember doing my live shows with a blanket over me because they had cut off my heat and it was like minus 40 Celsius outside. They cut off my heat. I ran an extension cord out into the hallway of my apartment block. My landlord found it and freaked out on me, right? And then I had a toaster at the foot of my feet that I would keep underneath my blanket, and that would be my warmth. And I lived on toast because I didn't have any electricity. Oh my goodness, I lived that way for very long time. I think it was like 6 weeks or something that I didn't have any utilities at all. And I was just grateful to have a roof over my head, but I truly didn't think I had much time to keep that roof over my head because it was such a scary situation for me, right? And I was determined that I wasn't going to ask for help, that I was going to figure it out for myself as to how to get back on my feet. And then again, if it wasn't for my friends and family, I might not have been able to get on my feet. And I might have been one of those ladies walking up the back alley with a shopping cart, right? It was a serious possibility. Grateful it didn't happen through my own determination, for sure, my own determination. But you guys keeping me company in that. And I must have been able to keep my phone. If nothing else, the phone was the most important, right? That I keep my phone so that at the very least I could do my live shows. Oh my goodness. I'll never forget that. I came pretty close. And again, I showed up in that, you guys. Right? I showed up in that, in my consistency, and even being scared and having that backlash of my life, right? My whole life just falling apart. But in just trusting that everything was going to be okay, in the end, everything was okay, wasn't it? right? I managed to get through that scary, super scary season. Oh my goodness. Yeah, right? And things got better. And then things fall apart again, and then they got better. And when things fall apart and then get better again, they never truly look the same. They never feel the same. I never want to feel that experience ever again of not having a roof over my head, right? Unless I'm on the road, right? And then if I could afford to be on the road, I've been looking at motorhomes, you guys. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I could probably get something safety for maybe, I don't know, $15,000, and then I could spend my retirement on the road, right? And I think that would be, well, probably take a little bit more than that only because I'd have to get the Starlink, right? Because otherwise, how would I be able to show up every single day without that Starlink? Mind you, Rogers now has satellite, right? Satellite internet, which is for those rural areas, but it's only supposed to be for like emergencies and stuff, like when you get caught up in Mount Everest and you need help and stuff, right? That you're able to phone 911 and make your emergency calls and stuff. They're making it a part of the systems, so out offering those packages, right? Will be absolutely amazing. And just like everything when it starts, it's difficult, it's expensive, right? But as more and more people get into it, then the price starts to come down a little bit, right? Remember how expensive computers were when they first started coming out? Like they were so expensive, but then afterwards, when every household is getting a computer and stuff, and then phones were coming in, and then it was the thing to upgrade your phone at the end of every contract when it wasn't really necessary, but people did it anyway, right? And and eventually phones have come down in price too, right? At least the packages for the phones have. Yeah, I'm really happy right now. My phone is paid for. Like my phone bill's like $50 a month right now. So I think I'm just going to enjoy the Pixel that I have now and not get another one for a little while. Just because I don't need to, right? I have two Pixels right now. I lost the last one I had. I think I threw it in one of the donation bins, and it got donated, and I never saw it again. That was kind of heartbreaking, but my contract was over, so I didn't have to cough up any money except for the added on fee to my bill for 2 years. But oh my goodness, it feels so good to have the phone knocked down to like $50 a month. That's nothing, you guys. Like my phone bill was like 135, 140 at the deluxe plan, right? But now nothing. And of course, I keep my phone and my internet. I keep those separate, the landlines, because if the phone goes down, then I know I have my internet that I can do the internet. And if something happens to the internet, then I can just use the data on my phone to go live. I've been experimenting as using my phone as a webcam, but there's a lot of interference, and I haven't been able to figure it out whether or not it's the cord or if it's the messaging or it's in the phone link. I have no idea. I did a little bit of Googling and everything, so I thought it'd probably be a better idea that I just hang out here, right? Especially on a Sunday night when it goes for an hour and a half. Well, I guess my other shows they go for an hour now too. They go for they go for quite a while. But it is in that consistency and just showing up. And if it's a 20-minute live, it's a 20-minute live. If it's an hour and a half, It's an hour. It's an hour and a half. It is what it is. I don't clock watch on the Monday to Friday. The what's my good cheer Sundays, right? I try to keep it 7:30 to 9 p.m. only for the fact that I know that you guys are consistently here with me every Sunday, and I know for especially on the East Coast, there's like a 2 or 3 hour difference, so it's already getting on to being later on in the evening, right? um let's just come into some of these comments here. uh oh, you heard about that, Tammy? Oh yeah, Google it. You could see the whole night sky just lit up like a flashlight, and I went, "Are you kidding me?" From like a meteor that's only a foot, right? Yeah. But anyway, that meteor that was in that lady's backyard didn't turn out to be a meteor after all. Yeah. It was too light to be a meteor. But we always considered it that as a kid because we couldn't understand why it had so many holes in it, right? It just looked like Swiss cheese. Um Yeah, it was the atmosphere in Vancouver, British Columbia that happened. It was big news all over the world too. Oh, and the plate, the what do you call those that caused the earthquake? Those plates underneath the ocean all along the west coast from Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia, it's all breaking up. They don't know why it's all breaking up, but it's all breaking up, and they don't know how it's going to affect it, if it's going to cause more dangerous earthquakes or if it's going to make it so that those regions when the big one hits, because they say the big earthquake is on its way. They don't know when. It can happen at any time, but they don't know how it's going to affect when that big earthquake happens. It might save those two states and the province of British Columbia, at least the lower part of British Columbia, right? Yeah, so it was interesting. I try see these things, they come across my path, these little tidbits of information that catch my attention, and I go in and I check them. I check them out. But yeah, I did hear about the tornadoes in Michigan. I meant to ask you about that, Tammy, but I'm glad that you guys, right, in Michigan were pretty safe. It's unfortunate that people did pass away. I don't know if it was they weren't heeding the warnings, because I did see a warning for Michigan. They knew that the tornadoes were coming, right? They did know that they were coming, that there were warnings put out for them. But I don't know if the people who got injured or passed away, if they were ignoring them or they thought they were going to hit somewhere else. I don't know. I haven't been into the news at all to hear any more on it. Um, but yeah, I'm glad you're safe, Tammy. Oh my goodness. Speaking of meteors, that reminds me of the H.P. Lovecraft horror story called The Color Out of Space. A meteor lands on New England farm. A meteor lands or drops on. You make it sound like it's a spaceship. It lands on the ground. And well, things go downhill from there. I never heard of that story at all. But you're the reader in this group, Andrew. So yeah, it might be something for us to check into. But H.P. Lovecraft, he's actually a very popular writer too. I was watching Curiosity Incorporated, and he was digging through a garage yesterday. Well, I guess he wasn't doing it yesterday, but in his video yesterday, he was digging through a garage that he got invited to go check out, and there were shelves of old books, and they were just sitting there, just going bad outside with the moisture and just getting destroyed. And they were like first edition books too, from like the 1920s and the 1940s. They even had all the old school books. Do you guys remember the school books, Dick and Jane? Those books are worth between 60 and $100 a piece now. They were my absolute favorites in school, the Dick and Jane books. I don't know if anybody remembers those ones or if they even had them in the States. They might have been a Canadian school book, right? They were used as readers to help us learn to read. By that time, I had already known how to read. I taught myself how to read when I was like 3 years old, from comic books of all things. I take my aunt, my aunt was only 5 or 6 years older than I was, and she used to have all these Archie comic books and Casper comic books and Donald Duck, Uncle Duck, right? Those comic books, and I used to take them, but I didn't know how to read. But with those bubbles over each picture, and then I would look at the picture, and then I would associate what was being said in the box to what the picture was representing. And slowly, I taught myself how to read from that. 3 years old, I was reading, right? Yeah, I was a talented little kid. None of it was appreciated or recognized, right? Well, I'm not going to say it wasn't recognized. I had some school teachers that recognized, that I could write, which I am doing, you guys. 2 pages of my book. My book's titled is Secondhander. That's the name of my book, Secondhander, and it's kind of uh, a fictional autobiography. I think so far it's well, because a lot of what I'm writing about is my own experience, and some of my experiences are pretty far out there. So you would have to kind of use your imagination in that. And I'm trying to be truthful in my experience. Even in my opening line, my very first line in my book, I remember it totally. Like I heard it, I experienced it. And so I wanted to use it, but I couldn't remember the first 3 words. I could remember the end of the first sentence, but I couldn't remember the beginning of the sentence. And it took me like an hour. And I went, oh my goodness, I haven't even started my book yet. And I've already got writer's block. Actually, you wrote a book, didn't you, Andrew? I remember you saying one time you wrote a book. You guys, I had to open up my package of Kool-Aid. They don't make Kool-Aid in the packages anymore, but I didn't want to go to the store. I didn't have anything to drink beside. Well, I did have bottled water. I specifically bought the bottled water so I drink more water. But then I went and I pulled out. I keep I don't just keep a survival. Let me have a sip. Pineapple pina colada Kool-Aid. Yeah, I never had it before. It's absolutely delicious. They don't make Kool-Aid in the packages here anymore in Canada, but you can buy them online. We've had that discussion before. I was a big I grew up on Kool-Aid, you guys. I love Kool-Aid, right? And I have the perfect measurement for my jug of Kool-Aid, right? I double it, and then I use like six sweeteners in my jug of Kool-Aid, and it turns out perfect every single time. But yeah, I when I talk about having that survival bin, well, I've got survival little bins like this, and one is like packages of split peas and beans and bouillon cubes. I even got a big container like this of soup bouillon. So if I have to survive, if I catch a rabbit, I can make rabbit soup. I always try and keep a big bag of rice in the house. When I grew up, it was my dad's favorite survival food, right? My dad was a compulsive gambler, right? So if he had a really bad day at gambling, he would come home with a 25-pound bag of rice, and then we'd live on rice until he got himself back on track, right? So it became the norm for me to always keep a bag of rice in the house just in case something happens. But you know what? In all honesty, when it comes to that, and it's all for one, but not all for one, it's everyone for themselves, right? Like, you're the most important person out there, and you have to survive, right? And I will be just like everybody else, going through the Safeway broken glass windows, and right, going for the beef jerky and the coffee and soup bouillons, whatever it takes to keep me going. If I had my own little house, I would have gardens just for that purpose. And not only would I have gardens, I would be canning, right? And I would have a pantry full of all kinds of vegetables and fruits and stuff, and I would keep it fully stocked at the all time. But I'm getting too far behind in that. I keep these little containers, and in one, like I said, I keep it full of beans and peas and soup mix and bouillon, and just trying to think of other things that I put in there. I have seasonings. I put little containers of seasonings and stuff in there because, right, if something happens and you have to leave, you got to do it fast, right? And I know if I need to cook something and I don't have any onion powder, I'll just go in and grab the onion powder out of my little bin that I've got for my survival, right? For just grabbing on the run. But the other little one that I have is all my, right, those squirty things. So, right, because if I have to drink out of rivers and lakes and stuff like that, it's going to have flavor. Right? So I've got all these little squirty containers of flavor like they make now. Instead of the Kool-Aid packages, they have those little squirty things. And then I had my packaged Kool-Aid was in there, so I knew it was in there, so I just grabbed it out. I said, "Okay, that package of Kool-Aid that I was saving as a special treat in my little dugout house that I made with the logs and my homemade fire pit to keep me warm at 40 below zero. At the very least, I'm going to have some Kool-Aid." So I made my little container of all my juices and stuff, right? And all those things. So that, again, it's not a matter that you're expecting these things to happen, but if they do happen, will you be prepared? Will you know where your passport is? Will you know where your hatchet is and your bear spray, and right? Would you have cutlery and have those necessities? Right? If it's in the middle of summer, you guys, and it hits and you have to get out of the city really fast, you grab your bin. Well, it's 40 above. You're not thinking about snow pants and toques. But I tell you, once you're out there in the middle of summer building your dugout to live in over a course of winter, you're sure going to appreciate that you've got your toque and your gloves and a pair of snow pants stuffed in that survival bag. I even have a survival bag that's for, and it's in a separate bag, and it's for bandages and for when you break your arm. It's got, like, those constrictive arm things for when you break your arms. I've got strapping. I've got, oh my goodness, all kinds of things. Rubber gloves. I got tongs. I've got uh ointments, antibiotics, vitamins. I got vitamins, scissors, right? And then, of course, my survival one, which is the mishmash of absolutely everything. And it's not the fact that I'm expecting any of this to happen, but we have to expect it's a possibility that these things could happen. And if they are you guys prepared? right? Do you have a little bag put together sitting in a closet or something that if you have to get out of somewheres really, really fast, at the very least, if the fire alarm goes off and there's a fire in the building, that you could just drop that thing on your little dolly, have a dolly too, and you could just wheel it off to the sidewalk in an emergency. And if the building does go down in flames, well, at the very least, you got your you got a few things. You got a pair of snow pants that you can use. I mean, you live in a city. If these things happen, I'm sure, right? Somebody's going to open up their doors to make sure that you have a roof over your head. I would expect that. I would do that for others. But then again, just because we would do it for others, it doesn't mean that somebody else would do that for you too, eh? Okay, let's come down to the comments here. Did a murder? Did you tell me what that was, Kathy? A murder of crows? I never even heard that terminology before. I'll Google it if you don't get back to me on that one. What movie is that? The Color Out of Space. Oh, it was a movie. A number of the people I went to high school with were married and having children by the time we graduated. Oh, isn't that interesting, Andrew? I didn't know that in school, but then again, in those days, the parents usually took the kids out of school, so the kids would just disappear one day, and you wouldn't see them, right? Again after that. Yeah, I never had that experience, but with my own friends, right? With my own friends, I did notice, only for the fact that my dad was a nomad, and so we were always moving all the time. But lots of times, I don't know why, when we moved back, we'd always move back sometimes into the same area. So I would meet up with old school friends and stuff, and we would just pick up where we left off. And that helped me out so much. Oh my goodness. Going to 11 different elementary schools growing out, it was a horrible experience into walking into class for the very first time in the middle of the year, right? And being targeted, just people staring at you and just trying to feel your way and being shy, right? Not liking that attention on myself. It was not comfortable at all. But it was very helpful when I was able to go back to a school and I knew somebody, right? That was always pretty amazing. I That happened a few times to me, that I was able to hook up with a few friends that I had had, only because my dad moved into the same neighborhood, and I was able to go maybe to the same school, or I just bumped into them in another school, right? And I think, when we always moved back to the neighborhood, I would search out my friends. They didn't always necessarily live in the same house, but I would search them out, see if I could find them. And yeah, in those days we had the rotary phones, right? Even party lines. I don't know if you guys remember the party lines where you pick up the phone to make a phone call and there would be like 20 other people online. Are you done yet? Are you done yet? I need to use the phone. Yeah, party lines. I remember the party lines. Now, these days, everybody's got a phone. The babies are being born going, where's my Google Pixel? Okay. Um, Tammy says, I'm happy to be a part of your group. Oh, thank you. Thank you for letting me into your circle and lives. I really do love hanging out with you guys. Aw, very nice. Thank you, Tammy. Well, we appreciate you here too. We appreciate you here too. Oh, thank you, Kathy. We are a great group, aren't we? If you guys are hanging out at the background, I know lots of people, we don't like to get into the comments and stuff. But if you wanted to pop in, you can see you're just going to get enveloped and it'll be like you were here forever. And some of the people who hang out with me have been with me forever. Okay. Uh, yeah, we do. Don't we have a great crew, Andrew? I sure appreciate the crew we have. And it's surprising for a lot of you guys. I have to use my imagination as to what you actually look like. Some of you, I know what you look like. Some of you, we have talked face to face, right? Or like Sharon, when Sharon came up here to Winnipeg, I got to meet her, and she was from like Oakland, California, and it was so neat because Sharon popped into my lives twice this week. I think last Sunday, she showed up here at the end of my live show, and then she showed up on What's My Good Cheer earlier this week too, and I thought that was really lovely, right? And then what I did is I went into my Google Photos and I picked out a whole bunch of photos from when she was here on her trip, and then I resent them out to her because I know her computer crashed on her when she brought her laptop with her when she came here, and it crashed out on her. So I wasn't too sure if she had copies of all those pictures, and I got some really beautiful pictures of her. I took her urban exploring. We went and visited a few of the places. Like I took her to the train station and we visited the train station, and then I took her to a little log house that I hadn't visited yet. So the first time that I visited it, I visited it with her. So that was pretty fun. Yeah, and it was fall, so right, the colors were changing and we got to go for walks every day. And she did a lot of physio in order to come and visit me because she wasn't super active. She had some issues with her legs and stuff, but when she came up, she took physio. She went through the process of getting her passport. I thought that was absolutely amazing. And she did that trip all by herself. I thought that was so cool. And then and it was funny though because I was in a frantic mood because I was trying to go on a trip myself to Toronto, and I didn't know how I was going to manage to go on this trip. And then at the very last minute, the funds started rolling in. I got the tires on my car. I needed new tires because I was an urban explorer and I wore my tires right out to nothing. They were just oh, they were so smooth like a baby bum that I knew if I took it I took a road trip to Toronto that the car wouldn't last on those tires, and I got a really good deal on those tires. I saved like at least $2,000 on these pair of tires that I picked up online. And not only did I pick them up online, the guy I bought them from put them on for me. He spent like hours putting them on new frames and then putting them on, oh no, putting them on my frames, on my old tire frames, and then filling them all up. He had a little workshop in his backyard, and yeah, and I managed to go on that trip. But it was a really frantic time because I didn't know where the money was coming from. And I knew that in order to get there, I would have to leave directly from dropping Sharon off at the airport. And yeah, it was a really frazzly time. And she left me such a beautiful little gift card. And when I opened up the gift card, she had thrown money in there, and she wasn't in the position to give me any money for that trip. And I gave it right back to her. But it was so sweet, the things she wrote in that card for me. And yeah, it was so lovely that she popped into my live last week. I really appreciated that. Yeah. And actually, Sharon's ex-husband, uh, if you guys know Anthony Cletus from Red Hot Chili Peppers, she was married to the gentleman that was with Anthony underneath the bridge when he wrote that song, right? Under the bridge. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty amazing that that was actually her husband. Yeah. Um oh, Eugene popped back in. Hello, Eugene. uh, Also from the Grin Company was My Little Red Storybook and My Little Green Storybook. Ah, Little Red Storybook. I'm trying to think of that one. I don't remember that one at all, but I do remember the Dick and Janes for sure. Um, I'm just reading the comments here, you guys. Uh, Yeah. Andrew's so smart. He's like a walking dictionary. I just love it. Whenever I have any questions or anything, he always has something interesting to say. And the thing is, he's so good with names. Like, to know the name of the book and then to also know the name of the writer, right? I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, Sharon, she's pretty amazing. I love Sharon. Yeah, and her son's airplane what do you call those people that sit in front of the screen and direct people? Controller. Yeah, airplane controller. He had to go through a lot of schooling and stuff to do that, and he did it, and he bettered his life by that. Yeah, and his mom helped him out through that process too, just in the encouragement. Like she's like a cheerleader for everybody, but don't tick her off or she's going to get a stick with a big sign on it and she'll do a march and stuff. She likes her rallies and stuff. So I can imagine her at these different rallies for different things that have been going on in the country. And not necessarily our country. I was giving that some thought actually yesterday, that all this stuff is happening over in the Middle East and stuff. It never makes it to this end. I'm grateful that it doesn't, but it makes it curious that especially with so many surrounding countries in the area, right? That all that conflict going on. Yeah, it's right. Sometimes you gotta make a mess to clean a mess. And I suspect, I'm pretty confident that things are going to work out pretty positively, and we're going to have a better world for it, a safer world for it, because we don't like these conflicts. We don't like that aggression and that one bettering up on another, and being this age of AI, that we have to make sure that we can get along with our neighbors. And I think this is a good way for us to feel out our own emotions and to truly recognize that it takes all kinds to make the world, right? To be able to look past other people's differences as long as we can resolve our issues in a non-confrontational way. And also, this is going to be an example for other people who think to start messing with the world being a peaceful place, right? Sometimes it does take having one particular network or group being singled out, and it's not always there. That it's like almost feels like the one person who got on your very last nerve gets it for everybody else who's just been pounding you and getting on all your nerves all week, and then you just rip a new one into the last person who does it, and they get it for everything. But at the same time, if they're witnesses in that's an example for everybody to say, okay, let's stay off Andrew's nerves, not get onto his nerves so he doesn't have a flip out. Yeah. we all get ourselves into that state. You know, something that I've come to appreciate is to really look at the intent on people, because I know pressures and heartbreaks and illnesses and little catastrophes and big catastrophes come into our lives, and lots of times we don't necessarily take that out on people, but sometimes it reflects in our attitudes. It reflects in how we present ourselves and other people. And these other people, including myself, would, especially myself, would take it super personal, right? Would take it like as a personal attack. And it's one thing I've learned again is to understand that it does take all kinds to make the world, but at the same time that we can't put everybody in that same bowl. We have to appreciate and kind of feel out the intent. Did somebody intent to ball you out or take your possession or treat you badly? Or were they feeling bad? Were they in a situation themselves, right? Like we all have those, we all have those seasons, and those are the seasons then we really get to appreciate who our friends and family are 100%, right? Like when I was saying that, I very easily could have gone homeless. And that wasn't too long ago, was it? That was like 4 years ago. Was it about 4 years ago when that happened? It was one of the scariest things. And I think I was pretty genuine. So I think you guys were pretty aware of what was going on in my life, right? Being the person I was back then, I might not have wanted it to rub badly on anybody else. But when you're sitting there, you got a blanket over your head, you got the toaster going on underneath that. You have to bend down and push it back down again because the toast has popped up, makes a big noise in my live show. So I probably would have had to explain that I had the toaster going on and doing my live shows in the pitch black, and also in that state of mind that I was in. It was super scary. It was super scary for me, and I'm grateful that's something from the past. But we learn from those mistakes, right? Because that was definitely on me, right? Those were my bills. That was the roof over my head. But some things we don't have any control over, like how many of us knew that, right? Because that happened when COVID started, right? And it's funny because I say all the time that COVID saved my life, right? Because in a way it did save my life, because I was a video lottery terminal addict, and because the world got shut down and you couldn't go to the casinos and the bars to play VLTs, that it gave me a break from them, and it was just what I needed. And I never touched those machines since. And I was such a bad gambler, you guys, like, oh my good, thousands of dollars every week, right? Not every month, every week, several $1,000s. At that time, I had a really good job when I first started getting addicted to those video lottery terminals. Towards the end, I couldn't even hold a job anymore, right? Because again, in not picking myself up and trying again, I would just use those machines to say, I'll hit the big one, right? Can I borrow $5? I'll pay you back on Friday. And I take that $5 and go, I could have turned that $5 into $1,000. And sometimes I would turn that $5 into $1,000. But what would I do? I would sit there and go, oh my goodness, I won $1,000. I can play all day now. And I would play that $1,000 until it was totally gone, and probably even more money was gone, right? I worked in bars. I knew everybody in my neighborhood. Like if I asked for $5, everybody would just cough up $5 for me. I don't think I would have been able to quit video lottery terminals if it wasn't for the world being shut down during COVID. But it's funny that I say that too, because uh, I quit smoking cigarettes a long time ago. Oh my goodness, it's been over 20 years for sure since I quit smoking cigarettes. And that's when they hit $10 a package. Now they're over $20 a package. But they were $10 a package. I says, I can't do this anymore. And then my sister put patches in my Christmas stocking, and I didn't want to waste the money, because those nicotine patches were very, very expensive, right? And I would always go to bed every night. So, this is my last cigarette. I'm never smoking another cigarette ever again. And then I'd wake up in the morning, and what would be the first thing I did? I would have a cigarette, right? And it was the stupidest thing too, because I only started smoking cigarettes because I was a big girl, and I thought, well, I'd keep my hands busy and I would smoke cigarettes. But no, I ended up being a big girl who smoked cigarettes. It didn't help me to lose any weight at all, right? It took tons of money. It gave me hacker's cough. I had terrible hacker's cough. Probably stank too, because for me now, I can't stand the smell of cigarette smoke on clothes, especially like in the wintertime when people go outside to have a cigarette and that cigarette smoke gets on our clothes, and you walk into the building and it's just like all over you. And I just like, oh my goodness. But I still enjoy hanging out with people who smoke cigarettes. I have no problem, right? Standing next to somebody who's having a cigarette or anything. I actually, right, it gives me a little bit of a reminiscence, and I get to, right, so I quit smoking. But yeah, I went on the cigarette patch, and again, the same idea. I never had a cigarette ever again. That's the way it was with most of the things I got addicted to. And I get addicted to these things not for a little while, for years. Like, it was like, oh my goodness, I think I was addicted to cough drops for like 5 years, and I didn't even suck on the cough drops. I crunched them until ruined all my teeth and everything. I just spent a fortune on keeping my teeth fixed, and I smelt like medicine. Oh my goodness. I don't know why my husband would even want to kiss me, because I always smelt like cough drops all the time. But I was hooked on those things really, really badly. And then I did the same thing with ice. For years, I was an ice cruncher, and I just with the ice. And then just one day I said, that's it. I can't crunch ice anymore. And actually, what I did is I just eliminated ice from my drinks totally. And so I didn't have the ice to drink. And then, after not being able to have ice for a long while, I was able to reintroduce it into my drinks. But then I never crunched ice again, ever again. But this is what I did. These are just all coping mechanisms for the stress that I was putting myself under, for, right, being a VLT addict, right? Well, I'm not going to blame it just on the VLT addict, because being a VLT addict was also a coping mechanism, right? Was also something for me to cope on. And it's funny, because a lot of these things that I got addicted to, they were considered solutions to me. Like I said, I started smoking cigarettes so that I could lose weight, right? Stupidest thing. Stupid. And I didn't start smoking cigarettes until I was 27 years old, and then smoked cigarettes for another 15 years after that. And I smoked pretty heavy too, right? Over a pack a day for sure, for the longest time. Not like my dad, though. My dad was a 2 packages a day. My dad smoked his entire life. But in those days, his doctor told him to smoke cigarettes because it would calm his nerves down. And in the end, the smoking is what took him down, right? And my dad took fairly good care of himself. He wanted to live forever, and he lived 20 years longer than what he was supposed to live, but it's because he ate well, he took care of his weight, and he kept good care of his mindset. Like I never saw my dad lose it unless him and mom got in a fight, right? But my dad was a very kind of guy, right? Very happy. I never saw my dad raise his temper. He never raised a hand to any of us kids. Yeah, he was a pretty amazing man. And I think he personally, just by the way he took care of himself in some aspects, right? He was determined to live. We were talking a little bit this week about it. He was determined to live his best life. So he took dangerous jobs, but he also smoked cigarettes but he did lots of things. He ate really healthy, and he took care of his mindset, and he lived a pretty quiet life outside of his jobs. That's what I did too, right? I'm looking back at my life in comparison to my father's life. It was the same thing. I would give her, and then it was right. Then it was my time just to relax and stand back and regroup and recoup, right? And then go back at it again during work, right? So and that served me very well too. It helped to calm my system a lot too. I don't think it wasn't an addiction. I don't even think I was aware of what I was doing. But, in working in bars and nightclubs, it was really amazing because I always considered when I go to work at night, that was my social life. I was going to the bar. But not only was I going to the bar, I was working. So it was a social event. I was making lots of money. I made lots of friends. And then on my days off, you couldn't move me. I would probably even stay in my pajamas my whole days off, right? And then I go back to it again, all re-energized and ready to poop myself out again, right? And then that's what we do is we just kind of adjust our lives to make sometimes, right, crappy life bearable, difficult life bearable. Sometimes it's in the getting away from the people that we surround ourselves with, especially if you have a great big mix of people that you hang out that just all takes all kinds of draining energy out of you. I had lots of friends like that. I didn't recognize it. That's what it was, but it's just who I was at the time. And I rode those waves. I adapted and conquered. And even though I had all those addictions, right? All those addictions saved my life. They did exactly what they were meant to do, right? And they were meant to save me from myself, right? In the end, to make it so that I didn't crash in absolutely every aspect of my life until I got to the point that I could understand it and let some of these things that I compulsed about go, right? And really recognize that that was the problem, were these things that I was using to cope with my life, right? And I'd feel, oh, life was a little bit better. No, life wasn't any better. You were just filling in this little bit of space that you had before the next round of crappie with a pink ice donuts with some sprinkles on it and made you happy for a few minutes, right? I really believe in reward, not so much the punishment, but reward and lesson. Let's call it like that. Just getting a lesson in what we get wrong. But yeah, that reward was was how I moved all the time. That's how you could get me motivated to get things done, right? Whether that was the reward at the end of the week with a paycheck, or reward with the pink ice donuts with the sprinkles, or the cigarettes, or the cough drops, right? Because all of that, or the VLTs, the video lottery terminals. Yeah, yeah, that's we do silly things, right? Sometimes it's not until we mature and we look back to see what a mess we made with our lives. But if we could figure it out before it gets to that point, I think that's the best solution anybody could make. But we live in this world now where we can learn from each other, right? And maybe somebody out there is relatable, but not in the age bracket. Maybe you're in your 20s and go, oh my goodness, Cindy made such a mess of her life. And right, she didn't get it all sorted. I still don't have it all sorted out, but sorted out to the point where I can, right, take the control of the reins of my own life, because, it was a free fall in my life, 100%, but it was a free fall that was bearable because I had those things that I kind of leaned on to get me through. Okay, let's come down here into the comments. Oh, C Spot Run. I remember that one. So those are the red books. I remember those ones, Tammy. So that's an American book and a Canadian book then. Oh, you like, yeah, the trivia? Do you do those books, Andrew, like the Sudokus, or is that what he calls Sudokus? And the word searches? Do you like those kind of things? Yeah, I'd be interested to know that. Yeah, for myself, it was, my loves always related to the outside somehow, whether it was in metal detecting, or just going on adventures, or going camping, or going fishing. Oh my goodness. I remember this one apartment. I was a caretaker in this apartment block, and every morning just before the sun would come out, I would go down to my friend. I can't believe I still remember his name. His name was Joe, and he lived in an apartment just down the hallway from me, and I go knock on his door, and he'd have our gear all ready, and I would make sandwiches or something, and we would go sit on the bank. We'd walk down to the river, and we'd sit on the bank, and we would just sit there, and we would talk, and we would fish, right? That's when I fished. I don't fish anymore. I can't kill fish. It just makes me feel so bad when I catch a fish. Oh my goodness. The last time I caught a fish, I ripped the whole side of its face off. And then I held its tail in the water and I shook it like fishermen do so it would swim away. And the poor thing swam away. And I went, oh my goodness, this fish is going to be dinned in for a bigger fish in like 10 minutes, right? It was half its face was gone. And I said, that's it. I'm not fishing. I was a terrible fisher anyway. I never caught fish, thank goodness. But this one time I've caught a few fish, but this one time that I caught a fish and I took the face off the fish, I said, that's it. I'm not fishing. I'm not fishing anymore. But at that time I was fishing, and I caught this fish. It was a big one and I couldn't pull it in. And then Joe took my fishing rod and he brought it in, and it was massive. It was a big fish like this. I'm not even lying. It was fat and it was big. And Joe thought it was a catfish, right? So we took it back to his place and we recognized, no, this is right. It didn't have that thing on the side of its face. It wasn't a catfish. And he looked in his books. And he goes, oh my goodness, we got a big pickerel here. And he threw it in the bathtub and he poured ice all over it and everything. And then he spent the morning trying to find a taxidermist because he wanted to, right, get it taxidermied so he could hang it on his wall. We got down to the taxidermist and he got his picture taken. He got the picture put on the front of the Manitoba Fisheries magazine, because it turned out that it was a record for Manitoba. Pickerels don't usually make it to 25 pounds. It was an old one. They said the fish was over 20 years old. This fish was over 20 years old. And, but it would have been the big record. But because he threw it in the bathtub with ice and he made his calls and stuff, right, you're supposed to freeze it right away, but it was too big to stuff in the freezer. So he just stuck it in the bathtub and it lost like a pound and a half or something, and he still had it taxidermied and he still hung it on his wall. He was super proud of it. But then and he got on that magazine and they gave him this little coin. It's they call it a merit award for getting record fish. And we just caught it down like almost right across the street from downtown. We caught this fish, right? And it was funny because I think about it now, and that was my fish, right? But because I couldn't pull it in, he took the fishing rod from me. He pulled it in. I guess he just considered it his fish. And for me, the fishing wasn't so much the point of this routine that we did every morning. It was the company. It was the little bit of adventure. It was that quiet time, right? Even before the sun come up, and we'd be sitting on the bank and the sun would start to come up, and then that mist would kind of hover over the river, right? And it was just a nice quiet time. I just really loved that experience actually. But anything to do with the outdoors, I was in. I was usually the one planning the adventures. I would, right? Even when we had our big crew, I was always the one planning it, some kind of outdoor adventure, whether it was going to the beach or going to the forest or going to Zinnabon Park or going to sit in somebody's backyard and having a party. And yeah, so that was me. I was like, I would have made the best party planner ever. It was something I really enjoyed, and it was something I was really good at. I actually uh, was the wedding planner for my own wedding, and I got like uh, oh my goodness, it was a $30,000 wedding for sure that I did for about $12,000, and my wedding dress was 10,000 of that budget. Like I got really good deals when I did my wedding. And then I did my sister's wedding, and there was no budget for her wedding. I could just do whatever I wanted with that one. And it was beautiful. We did a beautiful job on that wedding. And it was so much fun because if I had an idea, I didn't have to worry about the funds. That part of it would be taken care of. So I had free reign to do whatever I wanted. And then I also did her stepdaughter's wedding too. And I remember doing her presentation where, you get envelopes with money. And I did a paper mache. I found this big plastic Easter egg. It had toys or something in it, right? And I paper mache'd it and I covered it in jewels and a high glazed purple and lots of gold and stuff. It was magnificent. I turned it into a Fabergé egg and I had a stand for it, and I had a slit on it so people could just drop the envelopes into this big Fabergé egg that I had made for her window. I had all these really neat creative ideas, but again, sometimes, most of the time, creative ideas cost money. It's always nice when somebody else has that budget and you don't have to worry about it anymore, right? Yeah, that was lots of fun. But I would have made a great party planner, right? Yeah, I wanted to actually do the nightclub promoter. I thought I would be really good at nightclub promoting, and I did do it every once in a while when our club promoter, the DJ, didn't show up at the bar, and I would take over. I was that woman all the time. If there was a microphone to be had, I would just like scoop that thing up. You would be better off not to invite me to the wedding because I would look for every opportunity. I don't know why, because I didn't like to be the speaker. I didn't like to be, right? But being the promoter that I was and wanting to make sure that everybody was having a good time, I always took it upon myself to be the coach, the cheerleader, right? That little what do you call that when you go to high school? Pep rally. I would be that I'd be that person with the microphone, right? Yeah, you didn't want me to go to your wedding. I'd be wanting to do all the speeches for sure. Okay. Uh, I really don't do word and number games, but as people here know, give me a deck of cards for playing solitaire, and I'm on my way. I used to love solitaire too, Andrew. I played a lot of solitaire, but I always played online when computers first came out. I don't think for a big part of it, I even had the internet. I was just happy to have, the files that I could write and do things with. And then you could pick up few solitaire games on the computer and stuff. So I would play solitaire with myself. Uh, and but for me, with the card games, it was usually crib. I really loved crib. And I wish I had learned bridge because my dad was a bridge player, and I would have loved to have been able to go and play bridge with him and be a partner with him in bridge. I don't know if bridge is a partner game. I think it's a partner game. I'm not sure for sure. Like I said, I never learned to play bridge, but yeah, crib for sure. And then the simple one like war, those kids go fish. Yeah, I like those ones too because they're simple and mindless and something that I knew how to play when it came to cards. I used to like to play hangman too. Do you guys remember hangman? You grab a pencil and you just draw on it until somebody gets that. It was kind of like Scrabble but on paper, right? Yeah, used to like that. But nowadays we just don't have the time for that anymore, do we? Right? Or we think we don't have the time for that because we're so busy doing other things. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. After 9 o'clock already. Uh, I use regular cards. There are many forms of solitaire. My favorite is called Chameleon Solitaire. Klondike Solitaire is probably the best known version. See, I didn't even know there were different kinds of solitaire. I thought there was only one kind. Do you still play solitaire? Andrew, you still play solitaire on your own? Because I remember the first time that you mentioned solitaire. That must have been pretty close to 10 years ago, Andrew. So you do still play solitaire. I have a sketchy knowledge of bridge. I can get really involved. I love the board game Risk. That's a fun game. That's a fun game. Yeah, Risk. That's like taking over the world, right? Yeah. I never used the mission cards, but yeah, rolling those dice and getting your getting your little commandos all going on until you own an entire country. Yeah, for me it was always I'd go for Australia first. I knew if I could get Australia, then I could take the world over. Okay. Every day, Andrew. Oh my goodness. I would say that's an addiction. A coping mechanism from your hard day at work. Okay, you guys, I guess that's going to be my live for tonight. I kept it light on purpose. I've been I've been into the heavy this week, and yeah, it's time to enjoy. Spring is in the air. I'm prepping myself for it, getting myself all light and airy and ready to make some movement for spring. I got my eye exam for my contact lenses and my glasses for this week, so we're going to get that done. I also want to pick up a hose for my camp stove, for my new camp stove, because I don't like using just the metal bar on my camp stove. And so I put it on my goal list to get that done. So we're going to get that done too. And then continue on, see if I can find a camera. I was thinking of maybe going with the Osmo Pocket 3. It's getting pretty good reviews and the price is really good. Really, really good. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer for tonight. And I'm sending you some good cheer, even though it's Chatters Live. That was just my what is it, that consistency of doing it Monday to Friday that it just carried on. It just carried on today. But for sure I send you guys all some good cheer. I hope you all have a really amazing week. If you want to pop in during the week, 9 o'clock Central, I will be here. If not, I know for sure I can pretty much count on all of you guys in the comments tonight to be hanging out with us on Sunday next week. Eugene, nice to see you. Oh my goodness. And Owen, Andrew, Tammy, Kathy. Oh my goodness. Eugene. I'm just trying to think of everybody. Oh, Earl, did Earl pop in tonight? I think Earl popped in earlier. Yeah. You guys, you're so amazing. I'll see you next week.